What experience of yours is so crazy, you don't tell people about it because they wouldn't believe you? When I was younger, I worked at a popular theme park in the UK as a ride assistant. One of the rides I worked on was the River Rapids. Two young Scouse lads who had obviously been drinking got on, and it was clear they were going to be a pain in the ass. As their raft came towards the end, they both were running around the outsides of it. The raft hits the wall and they both fell in. This is near the lift section of the ride, which if they'd been snagged would have torn them up badly. I ran down and God knows how, managed to pull them both out. They were both swiftly escorted to the medical center and I am assuming off park. The same day, after I finish work, I went to go and see a friend for a few hours, and on my way home I follow a car that is all over the place. The car hits a curb and flips onto its roof. I stop my car, run across, yank the doors open and pull both of the occupants out. Same two lads I'd pulled out of the water at work earlier in the day. You clearly interrupted some Final Destination stuff right there. I was on a train and this train had one of those chains which you pull in case of an emergency and it stops the train, and if you pull it for no reason you can face up to 2 years in prison and a huge fine. So I was just sitting, and when I decided to get up to go to the washroom, I was kind of stuck, so I used the nearest thing to help me get up, and what I pulled was the chain. Suddenly the train stopped and I was like, oh crap, here I go to the prison. When suddenly people started running out of the train. P.S. The train had no doors. You would understand if you know what an average local Indian train looks like. I don't know about other countries, and what I realized was that a compartment of the train was on fire. So, that's how I survived from going to prison and accidentally saved the train. I told this story to a friend, but he would not believe me, so I just let it go. TLDR, I saved train and no go prison, smiley face. Somebody saw you accidentally pull it and decided to save you from prison. Oh God, I hope you are right and wrong at the same time, lol. It's my time to shine, arsonist with some degree of morality. I like watching wild birds at my work. I watched a young magpie steal bread off a raven. The magpie's family then attacked the young magpie, took the bread off and gave it back to the raven. They were bird yelling at the young bird. Then called to the young magpie and kinda forced it to the front of the pack to the raven. The adult magpies gently pecked at the young magpie until it sung at the raven. Then the magpies all waddled away and went back to hunting for bugs. I feel like I watched some sort of family magpie discipline to prevent an interspecies bird war. Edit: these are Australian birds, so they are the size of footballs. Magpies are smart and a bit cunty if they don't like you. I used to sweat blue for a few months. My clothes, nails, and phone cover all got stained blue. It went away after a while on its own, which was good because the doctors couldn't figure it out. You drank Gatorade. That's my diagnosis. Opened the fridge and a edit jar of mustard came falling down. It hit the ground and I already thought, great, now I have to clean all of it up, but I genuinely didn't hear it hitting the ground. When I looked down, there was nothing there. No glass shards, mustard, nothing. Looked around for a good 5 minutes questioning my reality. Turns out it kinda repelled of the ground and landed in the wine shelf next to the fridge, like 1.5 feet above the floor. Upright. Standing. It straight up did a bottle flip off the floor. It dropped a solid 6 feet on hard ground and just bounced. Still questioning the laws of physics to this date. It's a Gen Z ghost doing a sick bottle flip prank for BooTube. Once when I was 8, I was climbing out of the bathtub after showering. Since I was wet and shit, my mom wrapped me up in a towel so my hands were wrapped as well. I ended up tripping over the edge of the bathtub and face planted onto the ground, where I just laid there kinda comatose for a second. So I tried to get up, blood flowing down my face from a cut in my head and my nose, and my bucket of crabs nearby. This was a seaside resort, toppled over and went all over me, and they were like in a blood frenzy or something because they pinched me all over, so I started rolling on the ground. Lovely experience by the way, my family kinda just stared at me. I bled from my nose for 3 hours after being rescued from the crabs, and got sent to hospital, where my nose actually wasn't broken. My family refuses to acknowledge it ever happened even though I have a hospital bracelet with that date. Oddest thing ever. Either you were out of your mind and built a fake memory of why you were in the hospital. Or your family was in shock from the blood and deleted their memories of the incident. Or they just hope you forget all of it because they're ashamed of not being able to help you with it. That's the kind of things that would make me question reality. Look, if your sacrifice to the crab god goes wrong, you don't talk it out later. My friend and I once missed the last train home after a gig and wandered around a nearby harbor, killing time until the train started up again. A drunk man, around 50 approximately 30 years older than us at the time, stumbled out of a building and invited us onto his boat. We sat with him drinking rum for a few hours while he regaled us with stories about all the sex parties he'd hosted on this boat. I didn't believe him, but I was warm and had a drink in hand, so I humored him. He eventually pulled a lever near the front which opened a secret door to a sex dungeon, filled with all kinds of bondage gear and sex toys. We then added each other on Facebook and my friend and I went to catch our train back to London. Edit, he would tell us about the numerous women that were half his age that would come from all over the country to attend these parties. He would also tell us that he was absolutely, unequivocally not gay, but would totally suck off the other guys in attendance because it was the polite thing to do. A pirate hero. The captain always goes down with the ship. Was crossing the border at the Golden Triangle from Thailand into Myanmar. Had a heat stroke due to dehydration and passed out in the middle of the street right after the passport control. Woke up to 5 armed soldiers pointing rifles in my face. Don't speak a word of Thai or any other Asian language. I signaled, I need to drink water, with my hands and they gave me a Coca-Cola and helped me sit down in a nearby chair. It's too bad you didn't speak the language, because they were saying, hey, you're finally awake. You were trying to cross the border, right? Fuck. Back in high school a few years ago I had a photography class with my best friend and we went to NYC to take pictures for an assignment. We were walking through Times Square and there's always people trying to hand out flyers or comedy club promos, bus tours, etc. This pretty girl got our attention and she was talking to us about a book, one can't remember the name. Anyway, she's explaining this book to us and suddenly she's like, I have someone who can talk to you about this book in more detail, Como with me. And she grabbed my friend and I by the arm and starts walking us somewhere down like 42 Avenue if I remember correctly. It ends up being a Scientology church. At the time I had no idea about Scientology and was just curious what heck was going on. So she walks us through the door and immediately a small group of people approaches us. She tells them we want to join and their eyes light up. One of the leaders I guess comes over and the girl basically hands off to him. He leads us down a hallway and says something along the lines of, we have a special movie for you. So we're brought into a small theater, if you could call it that. Maybe like 20 chairs and a small screen. He says the video lasts about half an hour and leaves closing the door behind him. After 2 seconds my buddy and I finally go WTF and head for the door. Turns out it's locked. We looked around the room for any other door but it was dark except for the light from the screen. I really did think we were gonna get gassed. The video was about how each of us all have untapped superpowers and this was more or less an instructional video of how to activate them. It was so absurd. When the video ended they opened the doors and asked us to fill out a contact form. No. We beelined it for the door and got out immediately. Headed to Midtown Comics to catch our breaths and then went about our day. I've told people before and they've been skeptical and dismissive by saying, well, why didn't you just get out immediately or why didn't you break free from the girl, etc. IDKTBH. In the moment I didn't feel threatened or scared, I wasn't even sure what was happening because it was so sudden and quick. It wasn't until we got in the little theater that we both opened our eyes and went, dude, WTF is going on? So yeah, kidnap might be a strong word but that was my one and only brush with Scientology. When I was a teenager I almost got run over by Robert Pattinson in my hometown. It's a smaller city between Bruges and Ghent. He was driving a Mercedes, probably on his way from Brussels to the hotel he was staying in on the coast. I'm 100% sure it was him. He was in Brussels for a premiere for the latest Twilight movie at the time. Only told my dad. When I was much younger, pre-teen, I was outside watching shooting stars. It was that time of year where you can see lots of comets fly by. It was the middle of the night and I was laying in the grass just enjoying the stars and comets. My older stepsister had just gone inside to grab a drink. Out of nowhere the entire night sky lit up bright blue for a nanosecond. All that was left when it faded was a blue streak across the sky and what looked kinda like a ship at the front of the streak. I didn't know what I was seeing, but it looked like it was rotating slowly. It eventually disappeared, but the trail was still in the sky. Immediately I rushed inside to try and get people out to see it. By the time they got outside it had faded completely. Nobody believed me. I found out later it was just a SpaceX launch, but I thought I had seen a genuine UFO for years. I know I saw it, but I didn't tell anyone because I'd sound crazy. You did see a UFO. Then you identified its smiley face. One day completely out of the blue my daughter, 8, started telling me she wanted to look out the window to see shooting stars. I told her it's very rare to see any shooting stars where we live, Yonkers, NY. She was really adamant that we should look and try to see one anyway, so I walk with her over to our living room window and look out with her. I swear not 10 seconds had passed before a meteor went streaking by, closer than any I had ever seen. You could see the trail it left in the sky and it glowed bright red. She got so excited and ran to tell my wife that she saw one. My wife does not believe that me or my daughter saw a meteor that quickly, I swear on my life it happened. Okay, this is literally for me. One night I was coming back from a friend's house to my house. It was 7 p.m. when I left and after a 20 minutes walk I arrived home. Though there is a small problem, I arrived home at 7 a.m. next morning. The lighting was the same and I didn't ever notice a change in the amount of daylight. The only reason I noticed something was off is because upon arriving home my dad was leaving for work and asked me why I had returned so early. Completely confused I asked what he meant and he showed me his watch. I was taken aback and he noticed something was wrong. He asked what was wrong and I told him. He looked me dead in the eye, and started laughing. He said we had spoken at 10 p.m. and I had told him that I would be staying for the night at the friend's house I left at 7 p.m. Friend confirmed time of departure and dad confirms time of arrival, as he was leaving for work and also I myself remember that. This leaves us with a 12-hour gap in which I have no idea what was I doing and where I was. My dad didn't believe me and thought I was pranking him. Thankfully it has been 1.5 years since that and nothing like that has happened since. Still gives me the chills trying to understand how could something like this happen. Edit, as many concerned people pointed out, I could be suffering from epileptic episodes. This is not the case. 6 months after this happened and due to an unrelated health problem, severe migraines, I had multiple encephalograms, 2 MRIs, a CT scan and countless blood exams. My doctor concluded there is no problem whatsoever with my brain, or any other part for that matter, and another doctor agreed. Edit 2, hey guys you can chill. I will not die nor become a psychopath. It's all good. When I was 21 I was going through a really lost and stressful time in my life. I'm not religious and don't really believe in spirituality or the paranormal, but I kept having sleep paralysis episodes that seemed so real. The hallucinations, the panic, everything was very much real and right in front of me. An old lady who was my neighbor heard from my mother that this was happening to me, so she had me call this guy who apparently was like a guru with paranormal experiences like that. He basically told me to simply go through my room and every day before going to bed to tell whatever it was that was causing these episodes that it wasn't welcome and to go away. So I decided to humor him in hopes that it would make it stop, and after doing this 1 or 2 times I wake up in late morning and notice that I can't move. I look up and there are these 2 beings in my room talking to each other in this strange form of language, doing things like clicking and using solid tones. They notice that I'm awake and one of them slowly comes over to me on my bed and says to me, if you would like, we can show you your past, present, and future, except it didn't say it out loud like in words. It like forced this sentence into my mind and I could hear it without hearing it. I know that is very vague, but it's the only way I can describe it. Basically it was like a really loud thought. I still have no idea what it really meant by saying that, but I look back at this thing and barely am able to shake my head and let out a very weak and scared, no thank you, and they both leave my room and I have never had another experience like that again. Still not convinced it wasn't just a wild hallucination, but definitely a weird and interesting experience nonetheless, especially with how it hasn't ever happened to me since. Makes me wonder what would have happened if I had said yes to this thing instead of no thank you. Either way, I tend to keep this story to myself as I completely understand how it sounds and would admittedly have trouble believing it if someone else told me the same story. Posted this on Reddit already once, and people thought I was making it up. I joined the Mile High Club. It was on a flight from New York to London. I just wanted to join the Mile High Club for a thrill, not because I had a fetish for fucking on airplanes or anything. It was quite uncomfortable and cramped really. We had a difficult time finding a position that worked. As I was coming we heard banging on the door. The flight attendant had somehow figured out and he began scolding us, "What you did is illegal," really giving us shit. We were panicking and trying to come up with a plan, worrying that maybe we'd get into serious trouble once we landed. In the middle of all this, the flight attendant came back with 2 glasses of champagne and winked at us. Once we realized he had been trolling us, our mood changed instantly from worried to amused as fuck. I fell off a 35-foot bridge onto concrete and barely even hurt myself. The most I got was a badly bruised thigh and a pretty bad graze on my elbow. Whenever I tell this to people IRL, they all call me out. Edit, don't ask how I fell off of the bridge, shit happens, man. Forgot to include this originally, but not even my parents believe me to this day. When I got home the next morning and told them why my thigh was purple and my elbow was fucked, they told me I must have been too drunk to remember the actual story and that I most likely just fell in the street. It's actually a shared experience between me, 2 of my aunts and my sister. It happened when I was 11. My aunt was visiting our house. I lived with my mom, my other aunt and my 2 sisters. Both my aunts were talking and catching up and her son, my 6-month-old cousin, was getting fussy. I offered to take him and brought him back to my room to lay him on the bed and play with him. He was fine for a while but got fussy again, so I went to take him back to his mother. In the hallway closet on the way out to the living room and kitchen was our washer-dryer. Someone had taken out clothes from the dryer and left the basket in front of it during the time I was in my room. I ended up tripping on the basket and my cousin fell out of my arms and into the air. This all happened in slow motion for me, but I remember catching myself, leaping forward and catching my cousin just before hitting the floor like he was a damn football. Suddenly it's really quiet. My youngest sister was staring from the living room couch and my aunts were staring, jaws dropped, at the kitchen table. He starts screaming and my aunt rushed over to pick him up and keeps thanking me and laughing hysterically out of nervousness, confusion and probably just the situation in general. We told this story to my cousin years later and he just doesn't believe us. We haven't shared it since, but my aunt made a joke about it when I was holding my own child and tripped a little over an area rug. "You're clumsy, but I know you won't let that kid hit the floor."